Hello, everybody, and welcome to our live Q&A episode. I'm here today with Danny,
Hi, everybody.
and Colleen is actually still celebrating her 50th wedding anniversary trip. So she is enjoying that today and will not be joining us this month for this Q&A. So, and the other thing that I want to say is that when we are recording this, it's actually August 6th. So we're a couple days away from the direct alignment of the Lionsgate portal. And so we're in it right now, but it directly aligns on the 8th. So our invocation will be around that today. So that's exciting. A couple of announcements. Let's see, this is next Monday. So I think we'll just keep it short today. We have Karuna Reiki coming up in August. Colleen only teaches that a couple times a year. She's teaching in-person Animal Reiki Master at Omega in Rhinebeck, New York, coming up in September. And then October, we have Holy Fire Reiki 1 and 2, Master, and Animal Reiki 1 and 2, and Master all online. So if you've been waiting to take one of those classes, it's been a little bit of a break that we've not done all those kinds of classes online. So those are all coming up in October, like beginning October and end of October. So just go to our classes page to check that out and see when those are and sign up. And you can, of course, always let us know if you have any questions. Okay, I think that's it for announcements. Yeah, I got it. Okay. And always helping us to stay on track. All right. So, what we always like to do is go into our invocation. So, we're going to do that now. I know Colleen always likes to give the awareness that if you're driving to, make sure that the energy washing over you, you're keeping your attention on your driving. Safety first, folks. So, if you need to like skip forward or whatever through this part, go for it. Or if you feel fine and safe, just allow the energy to wash over you. Insights will definitely come in. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to just take a moment. I like to turn my video off and then we'll go into the invocation. So as we are entering into or already into the Lionsgate portal, I'm going to just bring in that energy, allow it to combine with our Reiki energy for this invocation and Reiki journey. So just begin by coming into stillness. Find a comfortable position. You're sitting upright with your spine tall, or lying down with your body supported, or maybe just feeling your sit bones in your chair. And place your hands comfortably on your body where you feel they naturally want to go. And gently close your eyes. Take some slow, deep breaths and exhale fully. And allow your breath to anchor you right here, right now, in your full presence. Now say silently or aloud to yourself, I invite Reiki. You want to activate any of your symbols or draw them into your hands or in the space around you. You can do that now. You can continue to say to yourself silently or aloud, I invite the light of the divine. I invite the rhythm and the wisdom of the universe to move through me now. And I invite the Lion's Gate portal to open in divine alignment with my highest self. And notice now a subtle energy shift within you and all around you. Feel the presence of Reiki flowing in and around you. Warm and alive and loving. It moves through the breath, through the space, through the stars. And as you continue to breathe, become aware of the timing of this moment. And the sun is in Leo and in lining with the rising of Sirius. Invitation and opening. A reminder that you are a part of something vast and intelligent and beautiful, and that you are vast and intelligent and beautiful. And now listen as you can feel the rhythms of the universe, the heartbeat of the universe, the movement of the stars, the rising of light, all pulsing in harmony. And you can feel the rhythm in harmony with the rhythm of you. You're not separate from this rhythm. You are this rhythm. Your soul is ancient and divine and wise. You are the universe, and the universe is you. And breathe now as we invite the enlightened ones. And they stand in a circle around you. Their souls are ancient and divine and wise, and within the rhythm of the flow of creation. And they stand in a circle around you and they shine their light into the space, onto you. And you realize that your light is the same as their light, the same as starlight. The waters of creation of this earth, the stars, all have cycled through time and through energy over and over. The same thing that made the earth, that made the trees, also made you, and it flows through you. It is you. And all of its wisdom, right here, right now, in this moment in time. And you were born in this moment in time to remember, to help humanity remember that we are the universe and the universe is us. Imagine now a beam of golden white light descending from above. It flows from the stars, flows from the divine, the light of Reiki, the wisdom of Sirius, the heart of the cosmos. And it pours down through your crown, soft and powerful, gentle and infinite. And it flows down through your head. Open your heart and receive as it flows through your throat and into your heart, into your belly and your hips, down through your legs and into the earth as it roots you into the ground while still lifting your awareness to the stars. You are a bridge between heaven and earth and a divine expression of the universe awakening to itself. Now you can say to yourself silently or aloud as you listen, I am open to divine guidance. I align with the rhythms of the universe. And I receive what is ready to be revealed to me now. So you allow the energy of the lion's gate to reveal itself to you. Maybe you see light or hear a message, or you simply feel the presence or a knowing. So you pause here for a moment to receive. Reiki is flowing. You are held in divine timing, and you are safe to remember who you truly are. It's ready to be revealed to you now. Take a moment and listen. Now, place your hands on your heart space and feel the way that your heart is both human and cosmic, a miracle of creation, a holder of beauty and joy and truth and compassion and love, both personal and universal. You are the universe. The universe is you. You are safe to remember who you truly are. And we say thank you to Reiki for the infinite wisdom and the guidance and the assistance to help us to remember the divine source. However, you see that and connect into it, whether it's consciousness or whether it's God or the universe or the earth. Thank you. Thank you to the Lionsgate portal and to this beautiful alignment of the stars for the light and blessings. So you carry this frequency with grace as you walk forward in alignment. And as you take one more deep breath, a connection to all that is sacred. As the breath lands you home right here in this body, in this heartbeat of creation, in this moment in time, in the awareness of all of creation that is around you, and in the awareness of the creation of you. And so when you're ready, you can come gently back into your body, bringing the light of the stars and the steadiness of the earth with you into your day. So we ask for any of the insights to carry forward in our daily doings. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes and come fully back in. Thank you. And so it is. Right. Well, if you're listening later, you can always pause right here if you need a few moments to come back in. When we're here live, we come back maybe a little quicker than we would normally like to. So, anyway, yes, thank you, everybody. And you're welcome if you're here live to just come back in as you need and want to. Mm. Okay. Well, we do have quite a few people that have joined us since I went through everything. Like I said, we always get a few at 9:30. Um, so if you have just joined us and would like to ask questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat or let us know that you have a question that you would like to ask out loud. Just so you know, if you do talk, you are on the recording and we do post this onto YouTube. So you're on there visually as well as audio on our podcast channels. So I just wanted to let you know, but please let us know if you have any questions. That's the space for this, or, any experiences that you want to ask about or anything like that. All right. Well, Danny, do you want to go ahead and start off with a question or two from
Sure.
those that we've had submitted?
Yes. Let's see here. How do I know if Reiki is working? Kay asks.
Yes, a common question. Yeah, especially in the beginning, because I know if we don't feel it as practitioners, it can be one of those things that is a little mysterious and even, can have us question it a little bit if we're being fully transparent about it. Sometimes we do feel it and we still wonder if it's working. Other times we don't actually have any physical sensations that people talk about, like, oh, I can feel Reiki flowing, or my hands get hot or cold, or anything like that. really in those cases when you know if Reiki is working are the results. So if you're working on somebody else, did they get very relaxed? Did they even fall asleep? Those kinds of things. Did they have a shift in their mental, emotional state or spiritual state, or have questions that are answered for them, whether it's in the time of the session or even after, like um, their intentions that they were um, working on, that they came into the session for. So that's really I would say the biggest thing around it is what we have seen as practitioners over time are are the results. Also, if you are talking about self Reiki, because that's another place where this question can come in, is how do I know Reiki is working? Because with self Reiki, I would say that a really big part of our experiences now, and this isn't true for everybody, and it isn't true every single time. There are, of course, exceptions, and we can have different experiences literally every single time. But one of the things that we commonly see is that self Reiki can feel very subtle. And even so much that people can have more powerful experiences in the sensations as a practitioner for somebody else than um, for themselves. So when they're in a period of self Reiki. So just know that that part is very normal. If you're like, I don't know if I'm feeling this powerful, all encompassing shift in one self Reiki session. But what you can notice is that there are powerful shifts over time. And you can even kind of look back at your life a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, and really see where it has shifted and the things that maybe even have come to fruition for you, or maybe some healing that you have been asking for. All of those shifts can take place through self Reiki over time. And you may not even equate it to self Reiki. It might not even be in like your 10 to 30-minute self session, right? It could be um, later on that you have a very big shift in the way you think or healing that comes through, or maybe it's even in somewhere else. Like maybe you have a really big breakthrough in therapy that you have been wanting for a long time through hard work. All of those things can come through because of Reiki. I know I've had aha moments and downloads that come in through on things that I'm working through or asking about, and they can be in the most random times. We talk about that with driving or showers or cooking or walking or all of those time frames where you might not equate it back to your self Reiki session, but it is because of the self Reiki session or the self Reiki. So it's really when it comes down to it, if there's not a lot of lot of physical feelings around it, it is due to the results that you might experience personally or as a practitioner that other people might experience too. So, Danny, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I was thinking about when I have given Reiki and not felt too much, like what I typically do, because I have a lot of feeling and stuff when I typically do a session. And I remember once when I was beginning my Reiki journey, I was volunteering at a fair, like a wellness fair. And so we were giving 10 to 15-minute Reiki sessions for people. And right beside us was a Zumba exhibit. And so all the, it's loud and
Perfect match.
crazy. And I'm like, there is no way. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to introduce Reiki to all these people. And there's no way they're going to relax or even get any benefit. And so I was getting in front of it. Anyway, every single person would get off the table and say, that was so amazing. Thank you so much. And so I always just remember that. It's like sometimes if we're not feeling anything, it's still Reiki knows what to do.
It's so true. And that's such a great story, Danny, and such a great example because I think that noise that you're kind of talking about with the Zumba is can be even extrapolated into our own noise that we can be in in our heads sometimes as practitioners, or even in self Reiki. It's very normal to be in mind chatter in those time frames. I mean, an experienced meditator, that is like, you're not trying to get rid of the thoughts, you're trying to allow the thoughts to pass by without judgment, right? And eventually you do get to the point where your skills build up that, hopefully you're in that place um of like that stillness. But there are lots of times where we can be in mind chatter and loud and all of this kind of thing. And that's where, too, you can see the results of it as opposed to that inner aspect that's happening. Yeah. Yeah. As practitioner or when we're in self Reiki.
Okay, let's see here.
Any other questions from anybody here that's here? All right. It's funny. Sometimes we have so many questions that we
I
can't keep up
know.
with them.
Okay, this kind of goes with it. It says, what if I don't feel anything during a session?
Oh, yeah, yeah, when you're receiving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah, that's a great question too, because that can happen also, even years down the road. There's times I actually, really needed a session from Colleen recently. I forget when it was. It wasn't that long ago. It was maybe within a month or so. And I know that it had to do with me really wanting Reiki for my knee, and because I tore my meniscus. Um, and I remember I just chatted the whole time. And somewhere in the session, I was like, and I could feel the physical sensation on my knee, but like Colleen and I can have really profound sessions together. And um and I laughed somewhere in the like towards the end. I'm like, I just talked that whole time. And it wasn't even about like, I was like literally chit chatting. Just chit-chatting, and I noticed it somewhere along the line, and this is even though she did an invocation and I was silent and still the whole time, and we were in person, so she was moving around and doing the hand positions. Um and I just, yeah, I realized, I was like, "I have been talking this whole time." And she's like, "It's totally fine." She did notice. She's like, she know she's like, "You're not in your, deep meditative, like profound state. I'm just chatting about all the things." And that we were kind of laughing about it because it also made sense with everything that I was holding in that moment and like my personal life. Um and sometimes you just need to like bleh, with those things. And so, because I have a a busy life. It's summertime. Summertime's really busy. I have, a young kid, and so things are busy and life is busy. And I like currently I've got construction going on outside my house, and it's chaos again this morning, and all of those kinds of things. And so sometimes that is a lot to hold. And so the Reiki just really allowed it all to maybe even flow all the places that I was blocked, and just let me just chatter away, because that's not even something I do very often, which is really funny. Um, so that's kind of one aspect, is that even years later, you can be in chatter, you can be in mind chatter when you're in a session from somebody else. And sometimes that is telling us stuff. Other times it's just Reiki knows what you need, and so it's there. And then other times, like I think for me, what has happened for me, because we get this question in our journeying work and our journey classes too, like I would, or if you're in an attunement in Reiki, or in an experience in a Reiki class, and you're just fully in mind chatter. We get, did the attunement happen even though I wasn't in that like profound state, or that deep meditative state? And our answer, of course, is always yes. I think what happens over time is you lose attachment to the idea that you need to have a profound experience every single time. So in those times when I'm in mind chatter, um, I come out of it, I'm like, all right, was my mind chatter telling me something, or do I not need to read that much into it? because that's the other thing. Like, I don't need to read that much into it. It just was one of those, I was in mind chatter, I'm gonna let it go and kind of on to the next. And so that still happens. And it happens when I'm receiving a Reiki session. So the other thing is I did mention that I did feel it physically in my knee, and not everybody feels it physically either. And that's okay. That's normal. Again, it's also the subtle shifts that can happen. And there also might be things that can happen down the road that you don't attribute to the Reiki session, but it is because of the Reiki session. And I've had that, if I'm completely transparent, as a practitioner with clients that I thought as a practitioner was a very profound healing and session in it just because of like what, channeled through. And then they didn't really have any feelings around it, or even feel anything, and even connect to the information very deeply. And I just trust, like, there's such a deep knowing that I trust that the Reiki energy is doing what it needed for that person. And maybe the next time they go into some sort of healing work from somebody or something like that, that is going to have removed some level of layer or some block there or something like that, that it has created a healing that they need, whether they know it or not. Because I just have an inherent trust in the Reiki energy to know that that's what it's doing. Also, sometimes you can see that people might not have an experience like on the table, but that they might have like a really profound dream, or they dreamed really vividly. And it's like their subconscious is working it out when they're asleep, and that's okay. And so there's a lot of different experiences. It's not always like somebody is so relaxed that they fall asleep or they just go into a deep relaxation. It isn't always that somebody has like those kind of mind-blowing experiences where they see a lot or receive a lot of information, is a better way to say that. Receive a lot of information. It's not always like that. And that's okay, because the Reiki is still doing the work. And that's to where, as practitioners, one of the kind of most basic things that we talk about is really releasing attachment to outcome. And I know that that is, you know, it's somewhat human to be like, "Oh, we just hope that they have a good session," because we care, right? We care that people receive what they need in a Reiki session. We care that people receive the healing that they need and that they deserve in a Reiki session. Like, I think to me, that's like a human trait. But at the same time, as practitioners, all we are conduits of the Reiki energy. And it's also our job to kind of release attachment to the outcome. And we were talking before the session started about, Meg had this really cute little technique that she uses, where she puts the attachment to the outcome in kind of like a proverbial backpack and just sets it in, sets it, oh, like takes off the backpack and sets the attachment to the outcome aside. And I think that that is a good way to kind of think about it, of like just releasing the attachment to the outcome. And I know when I've gotten into those places where I do have more attachment to the outcome, that's almost a place where I might have more blocks, where I might feel it less. I'm in more mind chatter. And when I just like release that and let go, and I notice that mostly when it's people that like longtime friends or people that I know that ask for a session, or like a family member. I see a few nodding heads in here. Um, that's when I can get into that. I'm like, "Oh gosh, I hope they have a good session." And it's just like, no, just step back, just become the conduit, allow the Reiki energy to do the work. There's nothing that you need to worry about. The Reiki energy is going to do what it needs to do for this person in this moment in time. And so um I think did I get off track on where the question was? Okay. It's like I don't even remember it that. Yeah. Yeah. And I see the question in a chat that have loved ones that come visit them. in their dreams. Yeah. Okay. Arlene put in the chat. I have a few clients that have loved ones. Oh yeah. Loved ones that have passed come and visit them in their dreams after a session. Yes, exactly. Things like that that can happen that they don't necessarily just fully attribute to the session, but you know, for us that have had a lot of experiences with sessions and things like that, we just know that those things happen for people. And they don't necessarily attribute it to the session. So, yeah. All right. So, Andre has a question. How do you do shielding for the day ahead and before and after the session? Yeah, no problem. I'm at work, might need to disconnect. No problem. So, this question of shielding or protection is a pretty common question. And the first thing that I want to say is there's a lot of right ways to do this. There's a lot of different practices that people have that they do for protection. All modalities have protection practices and techniques that they do. So, you know, you also can find your ways that you like for your protection practices. So that's one thing that to know first and foremost. And sometimes I like to combine them. For example, if I'm using Reiki, I might also use like black tourmaline or black kyanite or smoky quartz. Those are three gemstones that have protective qualities. There's more than that too, but those are kind of the big three for the protective qualities and aspects of crystals that you might use for protection. So carrying one around in your pocket or something like that can be helpful. And even, people to keep it easy might just use like a little tumbled stone of one of those. That might be a little hard for kyanite. I don't know how well that tumbles, but the other two I've seen in tumbled stones, and just keep it in your pocket. As far as using Reiki energy, there are, I would say the most common one is using the distance symbol. So there's, you can use the distance symbol, which is HSZSN. It's like going through the acronym in my mind. Um, and you can send it ahead to yourself for the day. So that can be as quick as, you know, quick gasho, activating the symbol in between your hands, spending a moment in intention. And I might even just close my eyes and say, I send the distance symbol out ahead of me for my day to filter any unwanted energy, um, and only allow in the, most benevolent energy for me. You would want to come up with something that works for you. So that's one way to start with it. Start with it in the mornings. The other thing is that I like to think of it as like a Reiki bubble. And so placing that, all of the symbols around you, also the distance symbol, it's like a bubble of light to filter any of that unwanted energy with it. Because one thing I would say about a shield, and this is for each of us to determine within our own practices, is that I think of a shield as a little bit more of like a block out or in. So, and not everybody thinks of it that way. And so I don't want to say that that is the only way to think of it. I know many people have like a different um version of it or a different perspective of it, and so again, I certainly honor all ways around it. But if you think about it in the terms of like putting armor on, armor also can cause us to be a bit walled off, right? And we do need our armor. Like I'm super grateful for the armor I've put in the past that has come into my life or that I've put on to protect me and helped me to feel safe in the times where I needed to feel safe from life's events. So I honor the armor, and yet I think that one of the things that it also can do is create walls. And And so I also somewhat think of a shield as that way. And so one of the things that Reiki can do is act more of a filter for it so that the light in and out comes in through the filter of Reiki. Also, because it's the same way, right? It's this reciprocation um, with it. So that's one way of using it, and what I'll do, especially if I go into a certain situation where I really need my filters on, right? Let's say if work is challenging, and you're in, a specific workplace environment that's really challenging for you, especially so many of us in these fields are empathic, that it can really, um, ping that empathy with us. And so take a moment in your car or on the bus or the train, however you get to work, and put that bubble of light around you. You can also use Reiki trails. So that is this idea that you are, activating symbols in your feet, and leaving Reiki where you go. And so that can also help to entrain the energy of the space around you. And so Reiki trails is another way. But like if I'm going into the grocery store during the holidays when people are super stressed, I'm putting that field of light around me. And you know what's interesting about it is it's not just for me. Again, it reciprocates that energy back and forth because it allows me to be in a more calm and loving and compassionate state, because I understand that the holidays are stressful and can also be a really big place of grief for people, that when if they're in the store and that hurt is like exuding out, what I can do, or I always try to be so kind to the checkers during the holidays because they need it. And so if I can just go in with my light bubble, it's not just only protecting me, it's also allowing me to have that frequency of kindness and compassion that can help and train the space. So, and I know that's always easier said than done. And I know it's not 100% of the time. There's definitely times when I might go into the store and I'm hangry and stressed and busy and all this stuff. And I don't act exactly how I should as a, you know, hoping to be a kind and loving, compassionate being. We forgive ourselves. Um, and but for the most part, it allows me to offer that smile. It allows me to walk through the store in an anchored and still space. It allows me to do those things and try to act as who I hope to be in situations. But I will say that that bubble is what helps support that. And activating that in my car before I go in helps support that. Putting Reiki trails into the store. Hopefully, somebody behind me can walk into them and they can offer the smile, and it's that ripple effect. It's easier to say in a place like a store than a workplace, where you're with people all day, every day, and maybe there's a contentious relationship there. I know that kind of scenario is a little more challenging. So I certainly don't, you know, like to pretend that that is always going to be so easy, so much easier said than done, like, wrap it up in a tight little bow and it's all fine. Um, but it is a practice, and it's a practice just like anything else. What that bubble can do is maybe help you to navigate the situation where if there's a challenging person you work with, they go left and you go right instead of left. Reiki can help orchestrate those things, in your clarity of how to navigate a situation, as well. Also, the other ways to use Reiki is if you're attuned to Karuna Reiki, and we're able to say the symbols in Karuna Reiki, is Zonar and Halu, especially, and then Hearth. Those three symbols are really great symbols for that protection as well. I, kind of think of it as this like pyramid of protection, this bubble of light. And it also can help with like psychic attack. So if there's a contentious relationship and whether or not it's a purposeful psychic attack, I don't mean it that way. But you can feel the energy of somebody else coming at you. It can help to, filter that out. I even kind of I've had to use that in the past, and to me, it helps it to even to bounce off. It almost like doesn't penetrate that, but I still don't feel like it's a shield. I still see it as this field of light around me that is super helpful with it. So those are other symbols that you can use as well. And then there's a lot of other practices that people use, in other modalities. Like I said, the gemstones are just a few. Spirit guides, that's another one. If you work with any guides, have them in a circle around you, or even going into a space before you and like bringing their light into the space as asking them to come in with protection for you, can be super helpful as well. And then the last thing that I would like to say too is, well, actually, there's two things. First of all, is if you forget, send the distance symbol back. I have had that. I was going into a holiday thing, and I forgot to do that, and I just totally got like slimed. And I thought, gosh, like, why? So afterwards, I realized, like, oh, I didn't take a moment and put up my filters before I went in. And so afterwards, literally when I was in the car on the way home from it, I sent the distance symbol back to myself before the event. And when I was in the car going, I pictured myself there, and I said, okay, I'm sending the distance symbol back, and I'm putting a filter up for you to go into this event. Um, and I instantly felt better just by using the distance symbol to send to my past self. Like, you forgot to put your filters up. So do that now. And I literally in that moment instantly felt better. So that's something else you can do, is you can send Reiki back to yourself for before the event. And that can be really helpful. And then also, Kenyoku. So clearing techniques after as well. So that's a little different than like a shield or a filter. Just want to mention it because we don't always remember in the moment. Like, it happens where we forget, like I was just saying. And so Kanyoku is the Japanese Reiki technique of dry bathing. And so that's where you put your right hand to your left shoulder down to your hip. It's that sweeping technique. And then you're going to do your arms. So even if I do remember my filter, I'll do that after things as well to just kind of clear energy. You can also clear energy in a lot of different ways. We know smudging, the power symbol is a great clearing symbol as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you can also clear afterwards, that can also be helpful in the situation. And if it is a place that you are in often, so like let's say it is a workplace, for example, and I keep using that. It's a really easy example to use. Obviously, it extrapolates to a lot of different scenarios. Is that's something else that you can do, is place Reiki into the space. And if you do that on a continuous basis, that can be super helpful. I feel like I've noticed in times that it does help and train the space. Sometimes it's over time, but it helps them train the space. And the power symbol is because you can't go in there with smudging, right? If you're in a workplace, unless you're like my workplace where I go into Colleen's or myself, we can smudge in our workplaces. But can't go into a workplace and smudge. So you can use the power symbol and draw it into the space, even if you're doing it subtly, or use Reiki techniques like Yoshiho, which is Reiki with your eyes, and draw the power symbol or intend the power symbol into the space. Ask that Reiki, heals any lower frequency, lower density energy, take it into the light of Reiki, and then fill the space back up with Reiki. And you can, again, use the power symbol to do that. And hopefully over time that helps to entrain the energy of that space. People walking through that field can help with that. And that's another way that you can help with the protection or, shielding, or just helping with scenarios that can be challenging that you might be confronted with often. All right. Anything else around that? Danny, do you have anything?
I have a story that I remember when I worked in a construction project management firm with a bunch of engineers and architects and project managers. And so I put a Reiki filter on my doorway of my office. And I remember this one time, this one president of the company I could hear him coming down the hallway. And I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? And he walked through my door and he stopped and he goes, I forgot what I was going to say, and turned around and walked out. I thought that was so funny.
Perfect example.
I
Yeah,
remember.
my
Very
dad
fun.
oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I was gonna say my
Oh,
dad, he just retired, but he was in construction for forever. And he it's a very barky industry. It's so barky. At least where and what the him and the coworkers that I always met and hearing contractors and things like that. Yeah, they somewhat bark at each other. And so uh, it was always helpful for him to place Reiki into the projects that he would be working on. And I know Colleen tells this story, but he would do Gyoshiho Reiki with your eyes when they'd be inspecting like a project that they were working on and place it around because you're not going into those spaces and drawing on the walls and things like that. If you're going to do like the power symbol in the air. um so uh so he would do gyoshiho quite a bit in that industry and placing it into the space. So yeah, that's a great story, Danny. Love it.
uh, okay. Well, you kind of answered this, but um, is it okay to mix other healing modalities with Reiki? And you did cover. She asked about crystals, but she also asked about like, can you do it with massage or beauty shop, other practices? Can you combine Reiki with other services?
Absolutely. And in fact, this whole month in our distance Reiki share and social media, we are talking about shamanism and Reiki. What are the differences, how we combine them? Because that is one of the common questions that we get because of especially Colleen's extensive experience with shamanism. She started in shamanism before she did Reiki. It was shamanism that led her to Reiki, actually. And so it's a common question that we get with our people. Um, and so that's a place that people have combined it. It's a place that we use shamanic techniques through the Reiki lens. Like in our next step Reiki classes, that's what we're teaching. We're teaching Reiki journey techniques. We're teaching different skills, um, like I'm thinking of level 2, which is advanced healing techniques. We do, past life healing, ancestral healing, spirit attachments, finding spirit guides for people, things like that. Level 3, we teach channeling out loud, how to channel, what you're observing in Reiki sessions out loud, which is helpful not just for if you're a practitioner, but on a personal level, it helps you in your personal relationships and things like that. So we definitely combine it with other modalities, including shamanism is one of the big ones. Um, but yes, I mean, people are combining it with sound healing is a big one. Lots of people combine it with sound healing because with sound bowls and the vibrations and the frequencies of it help to deliver the Reiki energy. And so that's another place that people very commonly combine Reiki with other modalities. There's lots of people that run Reiki in their yoga classes. Um, Gosh, we have hairstylists that are running Reiki during that. And, I mean, being a hair artist is basically being a therapist, right? Everybody comes and sits in the chair and tells them their problems. Um, and so, yeah, having just that Reiki running consistently through that really can help with it. We have lots of nurses that are using Reiki, therapists that are using Reiki, massage, absolutely. So it used to be that Reiki, that you could get continuing education credits for Reiki. That has since changed at a national level, but it's still true for some states and, um, some boards accept it. It's a whole thing, that, I'm other people are more versed in than me. So, I won't go into it too deeply, but it used to be one of those things that people could get continuing education in Reiki. And so they were able to combine it with massage and nurses would come and take Reiki and things like that. So lots of massage therapists use it because if you think about just that flowing through your hands as a massage therapist, you're a body worker. It's different than just, or, you're not just a massage therapist, like you're a body worker. You're helping people return to their wellness and their balance through massage, and Reiki only helps with that. So some massage therapists offer it as a part of their services. Some may offer a Reiki session or a massage. Some people might just combine it inherently, or they might just run it for themselves for their massage work. So it kind of just depends on, how each person's practice. But there's a lot of massage therapists out there. Reflexology, Teresa put in the chat, and acupuncture too. If you think about, moving energy centers and helping energy centers in your body to flow, absolutely Reiki can you benefit that as well because it's an energy healing modality and does help with that flow of energy. It also is a stress reduction technique, right? So all of those things can use stress reduction within their practices, and many people go to people and go through these other practices for stress reduction, even, sound healing and yoga, and then, of course, massage and acupuncture and those kinds of modalities as well. But then also the nurses that are here with us, or the vets or the vet techs that are here with us, they might just have Reiki either for themselves as a tool to continually fill up, or they can just run it and, they might not necessarily be giving it to a patient, but the patients can feel the difference for sure. So, there's that. So, I mean, it's pretty infinite as far as, unless there is a modality that asks you not to combine Reiki with it, to me, it can go with anything. There are some modalities that ask you to only stick to their training and their modality. And there's nothing wrong with that. We talked a little bit about that on the distance Reiki share yesterday. They just have their practices and their rituals and reasons why they do things the way they do things. And so they may not ask you to combine Reiki with it, but it's not because it can't combine with that. It's just that's just a preference around it. So it can combine, in my opinion, with pretty much anything that you can think of around it. And I think that that's, inherently with Reiki, it doesn't have any like spiritual belief system. And so I think that that's why it adapts so easily to different ways of being, is because it is adaptable. It's here to be adaptable for us, and with us. And so I think it's just a complement. It integrates with all of it. Um, Combining it with feng shui, yes. Lots of people combine it with feng shui. We've had Marie Diamond on the podcast. She is a feng shui expert and she's a Reiki master, and she talks about it. Um, it's funny. She talks about how in her work out because she's pretty well known in feng shui. So in her work outward elsewhere, she doesn't always get a chance to talk about how she uses Reiki to flow through her, when she's doing her feng shui work, but she likes coming on with us because she's like, I can talk about Reiki, openly and freely, with it, and how she combines it with feng shui. So lots of feng shui practitioners also are Reiki masters, and they combine it with their work. It opens up because feng shui is, it's an ancient technique as well, and it is about energy, right? And so it opens up and Feng Shui is like anything. When you first learn it, you're learning the techniques and the templates, and it's kind of like Reiki. When you first learn it, you're moving through the hand. Okay, am I getting this hand position right? Am I doing, you're moving through those techniques that are established within the practices because um because it's helpful. But feng shui is another one too, that as you build your practices and learn the techniques, of course you're honoring and keeping to the techniques that work. It's not like it changes that, but it is also an intuitive practice. Just like anything, it's energetic. It is, there's an intuitive process with it, because like with your space, your house, for example, you can't always fix where something is located easily, or it's not within the especially if you live in an older house. I'm in an older house, and you can't always fix where things are located easily. If I wanted to fix where the window in the bathroom is in the middle of the house, like, I mean, you're talking a giant and expensive project, so it's not always feasible. So sometimes you do have to, and they have adjustments lined out for that. Of course, there's techniques and things like that, but there's also that intuitive aspect of it, of listening to the house, and listening to the energy, and what's right for you and what's right for the space, and your flow with it. So I'm not an expert in feng shui. I just happen to really like the subject, so I follow a lot of people, and they talk about that because they they because it is something that it's like, as you become more and more of an expert in it, those kinds of things start unlocking. And I happen to follow a few people that in feng shui are also Reiki masters, and there's some things that are like, somewhat rigid in feng shui, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's like, well, no, this property is here. It's that's just the case, right? So rigid might not even be the right word, but it's like the tradition of it. But they're also Reiki masters, and so they can talk about that sometimes, about how it just starts to open up that flow and that conversation as well, when combining it with feng shui. Conversation with the space is what I mean. So anyway, I kind of went into it a little tangent of that, but it is a common practice, definitely. People that combine feng shui with Reiki, and how it helps each practice too, especially if you have a Reiki office. So if you have a Reiki space, look into the feng shui of it. So
Okay. Let's see. Let me get back to my page. Since you talked about shamanism, we have a couple of questions. You already answers how do Reiki and shamanism complement each other in the healing practice, but also they asked, can Reiki help someone open up to their own shamanic gifts or intuitive abilities?
yeah. So I always like Colleen here for the shamanic questions, just because she really does have so much more knowledge than me. Like said, I grew up in it, so I had my first soul retrieval when I was like, I don't know, 10. I grew up in the light song community, and going to ceremony and greeting people as they came off the hill, and quests and things like that, and taken, like the basics trainings with shamanism. So I do have probably above average knowledge, but I always like calling here because she really does, has such a practice within it. So I want to say that first. So I might not answer this question as in depth as maybe we could ask it again when she is here, or maybe it's something we put out in social media when I'm able to have her, just make sure that I'm honoring it. So I will say that when it comes to, first of all, the thing to understand about Reiki, and I'm going to keep this part short because she talked a lot about this yesterday in the distance Reiki share, which would have been released last Thursday. If you're listening to the recording of this, it was just the last distance Reiki share. First thing to understand about shamanism is that there are a lot of different shamanic practices from around the world. It's in the indigenous practices from around the world. So there is native shamanism, which has a lot of different aspects. There's Tibetan shamanism, there's Celtic shamanism, there's African shamanism. There's a lot of different shamanic traditions from around the world. And so many people who are called to energy modalities, energy practices do probably do feel like they have a lot of ancestral memory into the ancient teachings of origin, past life experience, ancient teachings. So that could look like people who feel like maybe in the past they've been herbalists, right? And those that knowledge can come be passed down from like an indigenous or shamanic practice. It also can have its own variation of it. There can be people that, if you think about the people that are connected into some of the lands that they might visit, so there can be this past life or this ancestral remembering that's somewhere in there that through our culture, those practices got so cut off that they're just now being more mainstream and being more talked about. Like it used to be that it would be unsafe um, to practice some of these things, as we know in the witch trials, things like that. Native practices were illegal until 1978. So we have this time period of when a lot of these practices weren't safe for people to practice, but they were also the medicine in ancient times, right? Like the plants were our medicine, energy practices were our medicine. Reiki was used after the Great Kanto earthquake. It was a practice to help people heal from disease, and that's why Mrs. Takata was called to learn and then teach Reiki, was because it healed her. And so there is this kind of remembering that can be within inside us when it comes to a lot of those ancient traditions and practices in cultures and in places that we didn't have this forgetting that many of us have now. And so maybe that's why it called us to Reiki energy. So that's the first thing to say, is that, yeah, you can have a remembering. Certainly you hear stories of people who visit a place and this past life memory wakes up, or you can feel the ancestral remembering wake up of ancient traditions, ancient practices, ancient cultures, and ancient times. Um, so I want to say that first, that Reiki can help that. I do also want to say, though, that when it comes to shamanic practices, we also want to make sure that we are in an honoring and an appreciation aspect of the traditions. And so we want to also make sure that we're respectful, that we're not appropriating traditions, that we are learning techniques, that we are trained and skilled in them. And you can see that even part of the reason that when it comes to shamanism, I want to make sure that Colleen is really kind of the go-to person on it, because she has the training within it. And having been brought up in that, I can definitely see where it's so important. Also, we know this more in our culture today, that where it's so important to respect the training, the traditions that are passed down, and all of those kinds of things. So that's why I'm like, well, I want to make sure that I'm passing along these questions to the people that know. Um, and so that is something that I would also like to add to the conversation, is that yes, and then also, but make sure that you are receiving training, that you are um, honoring the skills, that you are honoring the traditions, the techniques, all of those kinds of things that are a part of this of shamanic practices, that are a part of shamanism. Like there are also things that like you wouldn't want to, necessarily do or say wrong, that are a part of a tradition that you weren't trained in. And so that's the other half to this, is that just really making sure that you're honoring that. And if you do feel a calling within it, seek it out. There's lots of people out there offering trainings that have been trained in ways and by people that are passing down these offerings, and look into it. And also making sure that you are going into, the making sure that you're researching um, skilled people, uh, things like that, because there also can be a place where you can, and we come across this often enough, where there can be unskilled people with it, and not even necessarily from an unethical standpoint, just a not knowing of the idea that, like, no, you need to be making sure that you're respecting traditions. You need to make sure that you're appreciating and appropriating traditions, that we have permissions with certain things. So for example, this is why we talk about in the gratitude ceremony, um, the Thanksgiving address by Chief Jake Swamp, who was of the Haudenosaunee people. He did what was called a giveaway with that ceremony, meaning that we are allowed to use that publicly. We always, of course, credit, because we want to credit where credit is due always. But he is the people are able to use that prayer, the way that he talks about that in ceremony and things like that. But that's not true for every tradition. So there are traditions, there are ceremonies, there are techniques that are kept within a lineage. They are kept within a practice or a nation, and there's reasons for that. So just really making sure that you are being respectful of that and not going into something unskilled, or learning from people that are unskilled with it. And so just doing your research. That's the other thing around it. Doing your research, if you're called to learn traditions, if you're called to learn things, is important around it. I think that covered it.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Very good.
I've said that after every question, but that one to me is always so important that
Yeah,
I'm
of course.
respecting. Yeah, that I'm
Okay.
respecting it.
Okay. Can Reiki interfere with medical treatment, medications, and or pregnancy?
This is one of those old questions. Not like that the question is old, but one of those things that has been passed down through Reiki as rules with Reiki. So we get this one often enough, especially on social media, because through a game of telephone or whatever, however it happened, I don't know. I'm newer to it than when that, but I do remember when I was first attuned, because I was attuned, pretty early on with Colleen's Reiki training. I was like 15 or 16, somewhere in there. And yeah, it was definitely different back then, and there were these rules around it. Um, and so now we have learned no. So it used to be that you shouldn't give Reiki to somebody with a broken bone, because it'll heal the bone. You shouldn't give Reiki to people with a pacemaker. Shouldn't give Reiki to somebody who's pregnant. There's all of these things that have been in the culture of Reiki for a long time. Um, it also has been for years now that people are like, no, those are kind of old myths around it. As somebody who's been pregnant and received Reiki and taken a Reiki class, I can say it was only helpful. As somebody who, I didn't have a broken bone, but I have a torn meniscus, right? I am very grateful for the healing that Reiki has brought to me. As somebody who's been a practitioner with multiple people who have had pacemakers, it has not interfered. Also, I will say what's interesting is that after one of my seizures, I was hospitalized, and I had extremely low blood pressure. And my dad came in and to visit me in the hospital room, and you would think that Reiki would be used to lower blood pressure, which it does that too. And I've used it self Reiki for that, like when I've been nervous for an appointment or something like that, or given it to somebody else. Um, for helping with their blood pressure and bringing it down when they're in those high blood pressure um, episodes. But I never thought, because I was hooked up to the machine, you could literally see my dad put his hand on my lower leg, on my ankle shin area, and started running Reiki. And you could literally see my blood pressure raise on the machine as he started giving me Reiki. And within 5-10 minutes, it was back up to within like a normal range ish. It was still on the slightly low side, but like low side of normal. And so it raised my blood pressure. And that was all. And we watched even my husband, who's not really a Reiki person, he was like watching the machine. He was like, what? Because I had been there for a while already. And, the low blood pressure is an issue. Um, and it was an issue. And he came in, and within 5-10 minutes, my blood pressure was up to normal, and you literally could watch it on the machine. So definitely can give Reiki in all of these scenarios. What we do is just ask that Reiki go to the highest good. It's not that Reiki is going to help it with pain reduction for a broken bone. Like, it's not going to knit it back together in that second. So you don't have to worry about the bone. And I can hear people like, what? Or like, getting me in trouble right now. So maybe I'm getting myself in trouble, but that's not my experience of it. And I know plenty of people who have had broken bones who have given Reiki to. Actually, Teresa, you're here. Teresa had a broken leg. That's an understatement. And first thing she did was ask for Reiki. And it did not knit your leg back together. It helped with the pain reduction, helped with stress reduction. It helped with the emotional toll that can take, but it certainly didn't make it so that the bone set, and then then they had to like reset it and things like that. So just know that it always helps. It can never do harm, and that it can certainly be a super big part of the healing for people in different ways, for sure. Yeah, Sarah put in the chat. This is I have low blood pressure. This is interesting to hear. Thanks, Robin and Robin. My dad's name is Robin. So, yeah.
I want to add too that I've used it for my cats. I had a cat that got into an accident and took her to the vet, and her arm was, I think, ran over by a bike or something. And so the vet goes, "We're going to have to amputate." And I'm like, "Okay, let's just slow down." And so I took her home, and I did Reiki. And I actually want to write an article about this. So, Teresa, I'm making it real. And so I did Reiki on her arm. She would come over, and I would just do Reiki for about 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, the vet called me and said, "We really need to make that appointment." And I said, "She's fine now." She goes, "What do you, no, really, bring her in." I go, and I had to send a picture to my vet, like showing her the date. I'm like, "Look, it's fine." She goes, "How did that happen?" I go, "Reiki." So that's a fun story, but
That is
truly, I
fun.
use it on my animals all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's happened with my knee injury. I mean, I re-injured it, so my healing isn't quite as fast as I had wanted, but originally it was like my PT was like, "This is going so fast." And I'm like, I wonder why.
Okay, this is actually a common question that we get. What are the different levels or degrees of Reiki, and what do they mean? And when do you take them?
Okay, so we have Reiki 1. So we teach Reiki 1 and 2 together. So that is sorry. Um, so that is one of the things to know, is that generally speaking, we teach Reiki 1 and 2 together, but many teachers teach Reiki 1 and 2 separately. Sometimes they teach it together, but other times they teach it separately. So Reiki 1 is generally where you start with it. And many times you'll see it because it's called a little bit different in different lineages, but so we kind of just put it to Reiki 1 and 2, but Reiki 1 is also called Shoden. And so you might see it that way too. And different lineages teach it in different time frames and things like that. That is the first level of Reiki. Then, and that's where you're attuned to Reiki, but you don't learn the symbols or distance Reiki in that one. But that's where Reiki level 2 comes in. Reiki level 2 is where you learn the symbols. In our lineage, there's no time frame in between those two. That can be different in different lineages. So just so you know that. So let's, like I said, we teach Reiki 1 and 2 in a weekend. Reiki level 2 is often called Okuden. Well, I mean, that's the name of it. That's how people might refer to it on their like websites and things like that. It's just not always like, we don't necessarily always refer to it as Shoden and Okuden, but a lot of lineages do. So if you see those words, that's why I wanted to mention those, because that part of it can be a little confusing of like, wait, I'm seeing Shoden, Okuden, Shibuden, all of these things. And so that's why I'm also using those words. And so Reiki level 1 is where you start. Reiki level 2 is where you continue, or you can start with Reiki level 1 and 2. That's the basics. Those are practitioner skills. It's where you receive your first attunements. It's where you learn like the Japanese Reiki techniques, the history. It's where you learn the hand positions for self Reiki and for Reiki for others. So that's kind of the I don't want to call it basic Reiki training. It's not basic at all, but that is where you start. So then the next one is Reiki Master. Now, Reiki Master can be very different in a lot of different lineages. So I'll talk about our lineage with it, because some lineage, it also can be called Reiki level 3. So you have Reiki level 1, 2, and 3. And then, so there's that is the other thing that it can be called, or Shimpiden. Um, and so, but we call it Reiki Master in ours. And there is a 6-month waiting period in our lineage between when you can take Reiki 2 and when you can take Reiki Master. And that is to give you time to integrate everything that you learned in Reiki level 2. Also, just allowing the Reiki energy to, integrate with you, integrate with your life. You're getting experience with it, how it feels. Maybe you're giving it to a few people. Maybe it's just for you. That can be, uh, you know, uh, all of our individual paths. So that's Reiki Master. Reiki Master, what you are learning, or level 3, what you're learning, is that you are learning how to attune others. I mean, you're getting a higher, the master symbol. So it's also for us as well, because it does deepen your Reiki practice for sure. But it is also learning how to attune others, and also how to teach Reiki. So, and that also varies. That's how we do it in this lineage. It's a 3-day course in this lineage. That also varies. Some lineages break those up into 2 different kind of levels. It's like 3A, level 3 and 3A. And I don't want to go too far into that because I'm just not an expert in it. But that can be another way that different lineages break it up. I just want to also mention those things, because if you like Googling Reiki, you can see all of these different things and it can be a little confusing. And I'll summarize what we do in our lineage in just a moment. But some lineages break up Reiki Master Practitioner and Reiki Teacher. In our lineage, we have it as Reiki Master course, and it's 3 days, and that's where you learn how to give attunements, how to teach, and then also like your own Reiki Master Practitioner attunements and skills and things like that. Then also we teach what's called Karuna Reiki. And Karuna Reiki is just another course. It's its own energy. And that is also considered kind of like a master course. It's 3 days where you are learning how to give the attunements. You're learning the different elements and tools of Karuna Reiki, which is, like you learn toning and chanting in Karuna, things like that. Um, and uh, that is another 6-month waiting period with um, between Reiki master and Karuna Reiki master. And again, it's for the same reason, just to allow the Reiki to integrate within you, to have a chance to be able to use the tools, things like that. And so that's the third one. So in our lineage, in the Usui Holy Fire lineage, you have Reiki level 1 and 2. Again, we teach them together. Some Holy Fire teachers teach them separately. And there's not really a wrong or a right on that, but that's, we teach them together. So there's Usui Holy Fire 3, Reiki 1 and 2. Then 6 months later, you can take Usui Holy Fire 3, World Peace Reiki Master. So then that's the next course. That's the 3-day teacher course. And then 6 months after that, it's Holy Fire Karuna Reiki Master. And then again, that's another 3-day master level course. So those are the 3 courses in the Usui Holy Fire lineage with it. Now, you also could be Usui Tibetan 1 and 2 Reiki Master, and then Usui Tibetan Karuna Reiki. Or it wouldn't be Usui, it'd be Tibetan Karuna Reiki. So like that, that still exists within this lineage through the ICRT. Now, just to complicate things for you further, is that we also teach animal Reiki. So we teach the ICRT animal Reiki, which is open to all lineages. And that one, we teach ICRT Animal Reiki 1 and 2 and ICRT Animal Reiki Master. So the Reiki, and those we don't teach 1 and 2 separately. So 1 and 2 is a practitioner course, how to become a practitioner for animals. And then again, the master course is to up your practitioner skills and energy to the master level, but it's also how to give attunements and how to teach if you feel called to that. Not everybody feels called to teach. So with animal Reiki 1 and 2, the prerequisite is Usui 1 and 2. So you have to have the Usui level 2 symbols to take that course. So that is the prerequisite to animal Reiki 1 and 2. But again, it can be from any lineage. And then the animal Reiki master, you have had to have taken animal Reiki 1 and 2 and human Reiki master. Those are the 2 prerequisites. With animal Reiki, there's not actually any prerequisite in between the 2 classes. So if you're already a human Reiki master, you can teach, or you can take animal Reiki 1 and 2 and animal Reiki master back to back. Only time period that is involved in that is if you're not yet a human Reiki master. Sometimes you're in that waiting period for that in order to take the animal Reiki master class. So I think I got it all. Yeah. And Danny, I think let's go ahead. If there's no more questions from the audience, let's go ahead and just do one more, and then we'll go ahead and finish up.
Okay, we do have actually one more. Let me look, mine just got sent.
Okay.
One of my students asked, why do we have symbols?
Good question. I just want to think about how I would like to answer that. Okay, so gosh, I am sure that there's, uh from the historical perspective of this. In fact, it's funny that this conversation is coming up a lot right now with the historical aspect of the symbols. Um, So I would say, though, from just a personal experience, is that the symbols can help us to, it's like a ritual to help us to connect into the Reiki energy. It's a part of the tradition. Um, the symbols carry a frequency, each have their own frequencies, their own things that they might help to, have an effect on in our life, or the healing that we may be doing for ourselves or for others. If I think about it, and people say this, and do I necessarily think that the symbols are what is causing all of it to happen? Um, I think what the symbols are doing is helping our human brains to get to the energy. So you hear people talk about how they feel like they're already attuned to Reiki, or like, why do we need Reiki attunements? Because that universal energy is there for everybody, and it's within everything and within everybody. And yeah, I think to a degree that's true. I know for myself, I don't think that I would have been able to expand to the degree that I expanded without the attunement, and connect into the energy as deeply as I did or do without the attunements, and also without the assistance of having the symbols there to give me direction, for lack of a better word. Um, because I have a thinking human, you know, primate mind that feels, and thousands of years of conditioning, that I am separate from God, that I'm separate from my environment, that we're separate from each other, that the only way to God is through somebody else. And whether or not I believe that, which I don't, I have ancestral memory of thousands of years of that conditioning. And so and even if I can, like, think that I can intellectually know that that's all not true, doesn't mean there's not like a cellular level of that, or it also doesn't mean that I don't have that in the collective that is hard for me to break through with it. And I can say all of that now. In the beginning, I definitely, had cellular memory of that, even though I had that rejection away from like the religious wounding, and moving into these more individual, inner authority, nature based, energy based practices. So for me, the symbols were a way to do that, because I needed help to be able to do that. And I also like that I am able to ask a symbol to do a certain thing to help with. Like, we have the power symbol, which is helpful for our own life force and vitality, for our own inner and self expression. Um, Remembering that, like, that creation source at the core of our being. We have the mental emotional symbol that helps us with those thoughts, retraining our thoughts, retraining our mind, translating our emotions, as somebody who's an overthinker, and also because of that has had anxiety for a lot of my life. I don't really anymore. Had anxiety for a lot of my life. It's like, okay, can I use this symbol to help me with this? And then the distance symbol, being the bridge of light, being able to go through space and time, me needing to think that I need that symbol to connect into somebody over distance for a session or something like that, me using it for journey work, um, all of those kinds of things. That all was very helpful for me in my own space, and able in my own way to connect into it. So to me, I think of it as like, we're not bringing the Reiki to us, it's already here. What we need are the rituals to help us to bring us to the Reiki, right? To help us to shift into that frame of mind, into that frame of reference. And the attunement and the symbols help me to do that. Um, so that's what I would say about it. I think that, you know, people do say that they don't need it, and I don't want to say anything like, I honor um all people's belief systems, and if they're able to get there without it, then good for them. I'm not there yet. So for me, it's helpful. It's helpful to have my rituals of my drawing my symbols or Reiki on or Gasho meditation. It's helpful for me to, um, have my hands on me to do self Reiki, to be able to connect in. It's helpful for me to be out in nature and my grounding practices with my feet on the earth to connect deeper into the earth. Can I do that from here or in the middle of my busyness? Yes. But I like I find it's not even that I like my rituals, I do, but I find that that is what I need. And um I am very glad that people, can do that without it, but to me I can't. And like I said, as I was saying, I was like, oh yeah, those thousands of years of conditioning, and going back to our earlier conversation of these practices being dangerous, where it would, get us executed and things like that. That can create a really big level of forgetting and a level of fear for people to be able to practice these. And sometimes those rituals and sometimes those sacred spaces and those sacred containers that we create in Reiki classes and other energy healing practices, um, help us to feel safe enough to let go of those layers, to let go of those experiences that our genetics have experienced or our past lives have experienced, letting go of that feeling of unsafety to be able to connect in to that remembering, um, is what those is to me really what those things are for. And somebody else is going to have a different perspective of this. So I will say that first and foremost, and I honor other people's perspectives. I know people would come at this question from maybe a more historical basis with the symbols, and how that all worked. But from an energetic perspective, that's how I would answer that question.
And I agree with you. I was looking at it more like a personal question. I wasn't thinking
Oh,
like historical for me,
yeah.
but I'm the same. I mean, and that's why I love Karuna, because you get 8 more symbols. It's like, woo! I mean, you can go directly to a situation. And I love that for the way I think. But I think of like the Reiki symbols, like we have symbols for a smiley face, or we have symbols for a heart. And so when we see those symbols or we draw those symbols, we know why we're doing it. And so for me, when I use the power symbol, for instance, I know why I'm using it. I'm like, ooh, here we go. And so it's just a visual for me, or if I, think it or draw it. So I think it's really personal.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that perspective. I agree. Um, so yeah, and also, ask it. That's the other thing. Ask Reiki, ask the symbols. Why do I need you? And here's the thing, I'm not in my rituals 100% of the time. There's times where I need what we call Reiki on the fly, where I need to just be Reiki on and breathe in Reiki, or just ask Reiki to come in and run through me. So it's not like I think I need the symbols every single time. Sometimes I just even think Reiki on. Okay, bring in Reiki. And then other times I might just run through them very quickly, like, the Sui 1, 2, 3, all of my symbols, run through them very quickly because I need that for the situation, because Reiki is here to adapt to how we need to use it. That's what it's for. It's for our life management. It's for our daily needs. It's for all of those things as well. So it's not like I'm in ritual 100% of the time when I'm using Reiki or when I'm using Reiki symbols. Um, again, and even Mysticata, right? Reiki on, expect miracles. So there is there is that aspect that it's not like super necessary every single time. But when we're talking about the actual attunement to Reiki and to the Reiki symbols, and there's the other aspect is that if we're talking about symbols specifically, Reiki 1, you're not attuned to symbols. So, and people use Reiki 1 or are Reiki 1 for years and have a beautiful and effective Reiki practice. And maybe in regards to this question, it's also meaning like the attunement aspect of it. Um, so there is that, but it's not always ritualistic. I just know for me, it's like that muscle memory. When I say Reiki on, that muscle memory of like why I know it instantly connects or why I am able to connect instantly into it is because I have also been in the place where I have been in my ritual, been in the attunement, been in that sacred space where I've been able to connect into them deeply. And so I have that relationship with them. But I also think, yeah, ask Reiki. Um, if you're not attuned, um, maybe you could meditate on it and still ask Reiki as well. Or if you're feeling a calling around that, go into it and ask the energy. All right. I think we are at a good stopping place.
Yes.
Thank you all for being here live. Thank you to all of you who listen later. It is because of all of you. I know we said this before, but we reached over 1 million downloads on our podcast. So thank you all. We couldn't, of course, have done it without you. We're super, super grateful. And so, yeah, we'll call it a day then. Fanny, thank you, of course. You want to say
You're
bye?
welcome. Goodbye, everybody.